Over the past year or two on the show, we've talked a lot about school boards, and I think I can say that 100% of our conversations about it have been negative, mainly because a lot of people operating in fundamental bad faith have been infiltrating those school boards to do horrible things. But that trend ends because we now get to have on the show and interview someone who decided to take matters into their own hands and get elected to a school board at a shockingly young age, actually. We're joined now by senior at Boise High, trustee of the Boise School District Board, Shiva Rajbhandari. Welcome to the Damage Report.
Thanks for having me, John. It's good to be here.
Glad to have you here. So you were elected very recently, and I've been reading up on your past, and it is fascinating the work that you've done. But tell me a little bit about making that decision to actually run while you're literally a student in high school.
Yeah, I mean, there were several factors that played into my decision. First of all, I think young people belong at all places where decisions are being made, but particularly where decisions are being made regarding our education. And in school districts across the country, there are students on the school board, but not here in Boise until my trusteeship. And so I ran for school board really to bring that perspective and that voice to our school district. I had been working with students across the district on a long-term plan for clean energy for our schools, and we'd been reaching out for a period of over 2 years to our board members, and we weren't really getting the response that I think we deserved, especially considering the size of the group that we had and that we were all students, fighting for a livable future in our community, which was really frustrating. And so I ran, seeing that need and wanting to change that and show just how much students can bring to the table when we're given a seat.
And look, I think some people, like even people who might, care about the climate crisis and want to do something, they may not understand necessarily the connection between your positions on the climate and what work you can do on the board. But energy policy for schools, that's a significant part of the budgetary outlay of these school districts, correct?
That's exactly right. Here in the Boise School District, energy is our second largest expenditure. We're spending about $12 million each year on warming our buildings, warming our water, and other energy costs. So we can save up to half of that, so $6 million each year, according to the University of Idaho, by making a plan. We just have to do the work right now, and that's what I'm hoping to do on the board.
Okay, I want to talk more about that and about your past, but I want to put you getting onto the board in perspective, because you mentioned there that students should have a say when the concerns of students are being talked about, which I definitely agree on. So I assume that you are the only student on the board right now? That's
correct, yeah, one of seven trustees.
Okay, and are you familiar with, in the recent past, any other students serving on as a trustee?
No, there's never been a student elected to the position.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, to start, there's several barriers. You have to be 18. I was lucky that our election was September 6th, and my birthday was August 30th. So I was lucky to be old for my grade, and be able to run for this position. But I think also it's because just of a lack of understanding. I think traditionally students have been seeing more of this product, more of people who aren't qualified to make decisions and don't know what's going on in our schools. And I think that's absolutely incorrect. We are boots on the ground in the classroom. We know what issues our peers are facing. And in many cases, we know how to resolve those, or we know how to go about resolving those, listening to students, bringing students, teachers, and really all stakeholders into the decision-making process. That's how you make the best decision for a school district, for a community, for any government, right, is by bringing in all the stakeholders.
Okay, and I've read about the endorsement of the incumbent that had held the position, that being one of the things that inspired you to run. But how important would you say was your past work with Extinction Rebellion and organizing in being able to, in a relatively quick period of time, make the decision and make an actual run that was successful? I assume that training was probably pretty important.
I mean, that's exactly how I got here, right? It starts off with my teachers who every day told me, your voice has power, you can change the world, and told that to all of my peers. And then, from that, we're like, well, let's do it. Let's start organizing. We learned about climate change in 7th grade. By 9th grade, we were organizing, like you said, with Extinction Rebellion, fighting for a livable future on a sustainable planet here in Idaho. And I think what that showed me is that when we all work together, we can do some really big things. We can pass a collective commitment to clean energy in our school district. We can, challenge some of the most crazy things that happen in our state. It really gave me this sense of empowerment and a sense that student voices are meaningful and we can have a really big impact when we all work together. I think one thing that the media kind of has gotten wrong about my campaign and about my election is that I'm like this unique voice, right? Students across Boise have been organizing for years on issues relating to climate change, gun violence prevention, and voting rights. And I am just one of many people who are more than qualified to serve on the Boise School District Board of Trustees. And it's taken all of us to get me to this point.
I'm glad that you brought that up because, I exist in a number of different bubbles. One of them is that I live in LA. And so my assumption would have been that while of course there's going to be diversity of thought and ideology and all that, it certainly seems like a more conservative state. But you're saying that the students there, that's not necessarily reflective of their politics or of how they view their relationship with power and whether they should be involved and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. I think here in Idaho, our politicians in many cases are out of touch. And that's because a lot of our elected leaders, were not elected by a majority. They're elected in our closed Republican primary. Our lieutenant governor who made headlines, with this photo taken with like a white power sign, and with her indoctrination task force over December 2021, she was elected just by 9% of voters in that Republican primary in 2020. So what we need in Idaho is we need engagement. We need students, we need everybody to be paying attention to the politics and being involved in decision making in our communities. And that starts with representation, like we've created here on the board.
Okay, so I want to turn to your signature policy. I know that you've only been on the board for a little bit. Obviously, these things take time, but have you gotten a sense yet about the sort of reception that it might get from the other trustees?
We are so lucky in the Boise School District that this election, the September 6th election, every single trustee who was endorsed by that far right group you mentioned lost. And that the people that we have right now on the board care so much about our schools and so much about our students. And I think, I really am looking forward to working with them. And it's been fun getting to know them over the last month or so. Because you will not meet people who are more passionate about education and more passionate about supporting our students. And I think certainly, our job is to be accountability. Our job is to ask the questions, and I'm sure they'll ask questions regarding everything I bring up. But that's how it's supposed to work, right? And I think I'm super lucky to work with those other 6 trustees.
That is awesome. I'm glad not only because it seems like you're going to have a good chance of accomplishing this policy, which can be great for not only the environment but also to save some money there in Boise, but also, like I said in the intro, I have developed such a negative view of what effect regressive older people have had on school boards over the past few years. Just to get your insider view and know that at least on this board, these are people who do care. I am glad to have a reminder that there are people like that value education, they value public education and want it to be something that actually delivers for students. So I'm glad to hear that. And obviously we hope, we wish you the best of luck in accomplishing your goals. And I know you're at school right now, so I won't take any more of your time. But congratulations on the victory, and I hope that you can accomplish great things, Shiva. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I appreciate having me on.
Thank you.